Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished entrepreneur from India, Mr. Bhuman Dani. Bhuman, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be on the show.
Bhuman is the founder and chief executive officer with WickedGud, and he was earlier with BCG, or the Boston Consulting Group. So, Bhuman, let's start by asking you about your journey and what made you become an entrepreneur.
Well, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Went to B school at INSEAD and got swayed by the so-called smart consultants and thought if I do this for a few years, it'll only help. So applied, given that it's so difficult to crack the interviews, applied. I was lucky enough to get into 2 or 3 locations and then chose BCG London. Did that for a couple of years, but always was looking for the next big idea.
Right.
One fine day, walked into the East India Company that ruled India for a few years. It's now bought back by an Indian and was mesmerized by the kind of offering they had and thought we could do something like that in India. That's when I started my first startup in India called TGL in the premium tea and coffee space back in 2016. Relinquished control and partially exited to strategic investors in 2021. And now building WickedGud, I think the entrepreneurial bug still stays on.
Fantastic. So tell me about WickedGud. What is the origin of the story of WickedGud and what inspired you to start this?
Right. So I think if you look at the last few years, our food is screwed. Basically, all the artificial elements, ingredients that one can't even pronounce, all the empty calories, the sugar, carb, and oils started to make me think twice before consuming what I like. And when I realized that others are looking at these too in today's day and age in India, I thought I should change this. And that's when guilt-free indulgences as a concept began. And that's when I started to do a little more understanding of the market, of the target audience, of my positioning. And that's when WickedGud as a brand name really stood out because we're a magical brand that's transforming wicked indulgent junk into good nourishing meals with the mother at the core. If you look at any household, any average household in India, the mother's losing the battle constantly. Gen Z consumers and Gen X consumers are dictating consumer behavior, which is why junk has started to get domesticated by mothers. So we want to empower these mothers by deconstructing the junk element and reconstructing it with fresh, good ingredients so that the overall offering is way healthier than what's currently available without any compromise in taste. So basically a win-win between the Gen Z consumers and the millennial mothers at home.
How fascinating. And when you talk about you being on a mission to unjunk India, two separate questions. How do you define junk when it comes to food? And how do you propose to unjunk India?
Well, so I think one kitchen at a time, that's our mission statement, unjunk India, one kitchen at a time. I think if you look at junk, it's a variety of different foods, but typically they're high indulgent foods. When you talk about, let's say, a pizza or a pasta or a noodles, those are extremely high in indulgence and therefore are also made with some of the ingredients that are not so good for you.
Correct.
So I think my definition of junk is anything that sort of harms the body in the long run. And how we want to unjunk it, probably it's a very category specific approach where you will have different strategies for different categories. So it's very important to pick the right categories. So there was a entire thesis around which category we should enter, where we looked at 4 different points. I think first, I mean, as much as I'd love to change the world, there are limitations from a ingredient perspective, from a manufacturing perspective, because we are capex light. So that eliminates some categories. Then obviously you want to look at market size, given that you're an online first brand, the AOV, the growth rate eliminates a certain other amount of categories. As much as I like it, primary drivers in India are taste and price. So anything, health is coming up as a secondary driver, but it's still secondary, nowhere close to being a primary driver.
Correct.
So I think these are the last two, pieces of the puzzle where we eliminated categories where we are not able to match the taste of a legacy brand And in terms of price, we have a thesis: no more than 30-40% or INR 100, whichever is higher. We've done some, BCG studies have said, where Indians with a certain income are willing to spend that additional amount for a healthier, differentiated product.
Great response. And when you talk about Good focusing currently on, say, pasta, what sets Good apart from a lot of other pasta brands?
So, firstly, we're doing pasta and noodles. I think noodle revenue surpasses pasta given the sheer size of noodles in the country. But what sets us apart, I think, is couple of things, right? Number one, we're made with the goodness of atta, dal, chawal, chana, and oats. The basic constituents of an average Indian meal, which is way wealthier, way healthier, and probably wealthier in the longer run than the likes of a maida, the likes of unwanted ingredients that are being used in legacy brands in noodles and pasta category. Second, I think not a drop of oil used in the entire manufacturing process. We're using a SCAT technology, steaming, convection, air drying. As you may already know, all of the instant noodles are deep fried, and so the monosaturated fat in them is very heavy. Almost as much that you definitely don't want to feed that your children. Third, I think the seasoning has a lot of harmful chemicals, MSG, lead, I plus G, flavor enhancers. We've eliminated all of that because our seasoning is without any MSG, without any I plus G, as clean label as you can probably get in the market out there, without any compromise in overall taste. In fact, we've even filed for a patent for the process and ingredients that we use to make this entire product.
Amazing. Honestly, I had no idea that all noodles or instant noodles are deep fried, but that's a great learning for me today. But, there is another aspect to pasta and noodles, which is that I was talking to somebody and they say that now the healthiest pasta and noodles are now being made out of millets. So someone or the other will always be talking about a healthy pasta or a noodle.
Correct. So just to give you an example, our noodles also have jawar. So we are also having millets there.
Okay.
It's just the macronutrient profile of millet vis-a-vis the macronutrient profile of a lentil or a chickpea or an oats is a little different, right? You get much more protein in lentils than you get in millets. That said, I think India is, promoting millets in a big way given the growth. In fact, I think 2023 is the year of millets. So we will definitely look at adding more and more millets to all our categories that we probably get into.
Well said. Well said. My next question, Bhuman, is that how do you ensure that your products maintain their high quality and consistency?
Well, there's no playbook to this. We just do the basic hygiene. Given that we're so young in the journey, there are challenges across the board, right? So the first piece is the formulation strategy, right? Where we all group in, we ensure, we try and see what's the end goal, how much protein, fiber, whatever. Then we come up with a formulation strategy in our in-house labs. Then we take that once that there is some amount of product market fit in terms of taste, in terms of macro profile, we take it to a third party manufacturer in their smaller machines for a trial. Once the trial is successful, then we go to a lab and we test the product for lead, for unwanted substances, for protein, fiber, the basic stuff. Once everything is approved, we then do a commercial run, that too only 100 kilos or maybe 200 kilos basis the MOQs of various producers. Every time we do a commercial run, we have someone from our team, from our R&D quality team at present at the location. So we take a certificate of analysis after every run. In fact, in pasta and noodles, biggest thing to test is moisture. So after every part of the process, we do a moisture check so that it's all in control and in line with expectations. And then once this is done, the manufacturer also has some confidence. It becomes a little easier going forward. That said, we still do a quarterly audit with all of our contract manufacturers.
Well said. And you just mentioned to me that noodles was a big seller for you. How large is the noodle market? And within the noodle segment, do you have multiple types of noodles?
So we currently have three flavors of noodles, and we also have a Hakka noodle. So there's instant noodle and there's Hakka noodle. Hakka noodle is just the noodle where you need to add your own sauce and veggies to make it
Mm.
in an oriental way. The instant noodles are like legacy brands where there's a
Mm.
noodle and a tastemaker in it.
Correct. Correct.
So there are three flavors: masala, curry, and Szechuan. Masala being masala does sort of the best.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, in terms of market size, the instant noodle organized market is probably 15,000 crore,
Wow.
growing at about 8% per annum. The
Mm.
Hakka noodle is completely unorganized, so I don't even have an answer
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
Probably larger or at par.
I understand. I understand. In fact, we were on a holiday up in the mountains, and instant noodles seem to be
Yeah,
staple food everywhere.
4 times a day.
Absolutely
40% of revenue of legacy brands comes from the northeastern states.
amazing. And you're right, we were in the Northeast. So my next question to you is that, and I've often been amazed when I talk to food brands like yourselves, is that what is the key to consistently creating innovative and delicious dishes?
Oh, that's a tough one. Again, so I think there's no, I mean, if you've launched the perfect product, you've launched too late. So I think there's a quest for improvement in every run that you do. You
Mm,
start with something, you do some amount of tasting with consumers, with end
mm,
users, with potential focus
mm,
group studies, and
mm,
then you launch. There's momentum. You get data. You have to be, you need to have a eagle's eye or ear, or, you need to ensure what feedback you get on
mm,
various platforms. Is it taste driven? Is it packaging driven? And need to take action, corrective. That is the agility that a startup has over any legacy brand. So
mm,
if we can hear our consumers, so let me give you an example here. The product that we started this company with, we don't sell it anymore.
mhm.
That's how agile we've been, and it's been only
Amazing.
1.5 years. So we
Mm,
started with a gluten-free pasta, which was made with lentil, chickpea, brown rice, without any wheat.
mm,
It was a great product. I can still swear by it. But by the time we sort of got it out there, beyond the point, it wasn't scaling because of the texture, because people were
mm,
used to a certain texture with the pasta. So
mm,
you need to be very careful of that. And that's when we made some changes in the formulation, added some wheat. So there's still no maida, but there is some atta in it. And
mm,
then we made a product which now is sort of doing well. Even with the noodles, we had some complaints around our Szechuan seasoning being giving a bitter aftertaste. So
mm,
that's when we took action, went to the drawing board again, changed the formulation a little, made it a little more palatable with an India view, and then launched again. So if you ask me, do I have the perfect product? Probably not.
mm,
But do I have a direction to get towards that product? 100% yes.
mm.
So I
Well
think it's
said.
all about, yeah.
Mm, well
I think
said.
it's all about a hustle. I mean, there
Mm.
is no end to improvement.
Correct. I agree. I agree. And good luck. I'm sure you'll get there, and I'll be standing by the side and applauding your success. Now let me move to a few questions about marketing and branding, because
Sure.
that's a very critical element of any food brand. Let me start by asking you what goes into building a successful food brand like Wicked Good.
Well, I think two things. One, a well differentiated product,
Hmm.
probably where it starts and ends. And two, a community of repeat buyers that
Hmm.
requires clutter breaking content to distinguish you from the noise out there.
Hmm.
I think if you can do these two things parallelly in tandem and achieve success, I think you're with the sweet spot. Uh, Coming back to this is a very basic four questions that majority of entrepreneurs don't have an answer to at day zero. I didn't have it when I started
Hmm.
TGL.
Hmm.
Question number one: who's your target audience and what are their likes, dislikes, and interests?
Correct.
Question number two: how does your product translate into the need of this target audience?
Hmm.
Question number three: what should the messaging strategy be so that you touch the heart, soul, and nerve of this target audience?
Hmm.
And question number four: what does your brand stand for through the life cycle of your target audience?
Hmm.
I think if you
Great.
can answer these
Hmm.
four basic questions at day zero, a
Hmm.
lot of these questions, I mean, there's no playbook to success or building any brand. You
Correct.
just have to hear, improve, move on, hear,
Correct.
improve, move on.
Correct.
Don't be emotionally attached to something, and
Hmm.
obviously have your positioning correct as soon as possible in the game.
Hmm. Well said. And what would you say has been the role of all these e-commerce platforms and digital marketing to be able to reach Wicked Goods brands to your consumers?
Well, so again, category specific, but so to give you an example, you spoke about the Northeast, right? There is no quick commerce player in the Northeast. There
Correct.
probably is Big Basket and Amazon. That too would probably deliver after 4 days. So why would I
Mm,
wait 4 days to eat a pack of instant noodles?
mm,
I much rather go to my nearest store and buy it.
mm,
So I think the channel strategy has to be basis location and basis category. You
mhm.
may wait for a skincare product for 4 days if you're in the Northeast, but
Correct.
definitely not for a high impulse product.
Mm,
So coming to your question, I think the advent of quick commerce and e-commerce platforms has been huge for mainly tier one and tier two cities,
mm,
where you're spoiling consumers for choice. I mean, they would why would they wait a day or even 2 days if you can give a product in 10 minutes? So I think it's imperative for D2C brands to get listed on all of these platforms. Again, maybe not all cities, but
mm,
cities where their product can probably move, pin codes where it can move. So my first North Star metric when I started was to get listed on all these platforms.
mm,
Once I got listed on all these platforms, my next North Star metric was certain pin codes in all these platforms. Because
mm,
just listing won't do if you don't have, if you're not covered with all these pin codes.
mm,
Now my North Star metric, now where all of this is there, is to get into offline retail. But because we already have established data with all of these e-commerce platforms, we exactly know what product moves where in what pin code. So
mm,
when I have to go do listing across all of these modern trade and general trade stores, it becomes relatively easier. We know what
mm,
product is going to move where.
mm. Very interesting. And you just spoke very briefly, but how do you use social media to build Wicked Good?
Content, I think it's the three biggest kings: content, nothing
Mm,
else. We and need to ensure that we speak the language that our consumers want to hear. uh, that's the basic start. And given you don't have the budgets of a legacy brand, the only
mm,
budget and only thing you can afford is digital mediums, right? So
mm,
you need to use it really efficiently. Getting on board a brand ambassador really helps. As we talk, I'm currently on a shoot with the brand ambassador so that we can scale up some stuff on social media and
mm,
reach more eyeballs. Once you've
mm,
established a PMF and you know exactly who your target audience is, identify the brand ambassador that resonates with that target audience, and then go for the full hog.
mm. Fantastic. So a few more questions now for you, and now these are for you as a startup entrepreneur and the CEO of Wicked Good. How have you built, and I know you said you're only 1.5 years old, but one of the challenges a lot of startups face is building a strong culture. And you seem to have created a strong culture in Wicked Good. So, what are some of the inputs that you have given for a strong culture, and what values are very important to you as the founder and CEO?
I think two things. One, completely open. Anyone can walk into anyone's room
Hmm,
and speak anything. In fact, there is no designated CEO cabin or a designated CMO cabin. Everything is open. You can walk in and talk anything of your choice. And I
hmm,
think second, keep the hustle on. As long as the hustle is on, uh, you can get shit done. I think
hmm,
you're in the right money. Yeah.
Well said. So, two more questions. How do you see, or how do you envision the future of the noodle and pasta industry? And what steps is Wicked Good taking to stay at the forefront?
Well, I think the future of at least the noodle industry is what we're building,
Hmm,
which is without any oil, without any maida products, because Gen Z consumers are getting more and more health conscious and health aware.
hmm,
Yes, it may be a secondary driver of consumption, but it's going to get into primary driver very soon, the way it's
hmm,
going. So I think the future is exactly what we're building, and to double down on it, we may come up with more flavors and more forms of the same product. So
hmm,
currently we have it in a pack form. We may come up with a cup form so that it can be served on an airline, can be served at your favorite theaters,
hmm,
at co-working spaces, so and so forth. So I think we'll just have to start innovating on the pack, and obviously the taste profiles of young India is keeping on changing every day. So we need to
hmm,
also cater to that and ensure that we're not history.
hmm, hmm. But one related question, woman, is that I know when we were traveling up in Himachal, when we were traveling in the Northeast, like we used to have this thing, get something Xeroxed, right? And any photocopying was called that. Now everyone seems to be just calling an instant noodle. Maggie banado. How does that benefit? Because now the leading brand has become almost like generic. How does
No, I
that
agree.
benefit
So
younger
it
brands
does.
like yours?
So actually, it depends on what your end goal is. So
Hmm.
if you are wanting to take, a majority share from the legacy brand and try to get to 30, 40, 50% market share 5 years from now,
Hmm.
it's going to be an uphill task,
Correct.
almost as close to failure. But if
Hmm.
your target is to get to only 3% market share 5 years from now, then
Hmm.
that's definitely possible. Wicked Good as a brand is not a noodle brand.
Hmm.
It's a brand, it's a house of brand where the core is to unjunk the country. So
Hmm.
whether it's noodles, whether it's pasta, whether it's malted drinks that will come
Hmm.
up, whether
Hmm.
it's sweet spreads, we want to go after large categories which have large, penetration across the country,
Hmm.
and try and improve the product in a way where it becomes a little more accessible for people
Hmm.
who are looking for healthier options.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think that's I mean, 3% of a 12,000 crore market itself is 360 crore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. And you partly answered my next question, which was I was going to ask you, can you give us a sneak peek into some of the new exciting products you're coming up with? So you've told me a little bit, but maybe a little more, uh,
Malted
little longer
drinks.
answer.
So malted drinks, sweet spreads, I think definitely malted drinks are 15,000 crore market growing at 12% per annum in India, dominated by four players, which account for 80% of this market,
Wow.
all of which have sugar, oil, and chemicals in it.
Hmm.
Very recently, probably last week, there was a huge
I know.
controversy when
For a leading brand, absolutely. Hmm.
so it was 50% sugar, right? So I mean, people have started to call it out, and it's only
Hmm.
time where if they don't change the formulation,
Hmm.
people are not going to consume it beyond a point.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I think that's exactly where we want to sort of penetrate and try
Yeah.
to gain some market share.
Fantastic. And my last question to you, Bhuman, and this is for the many, many, many people who will listen to our conversation. As someone who has been a successful entrepreneur who's building another company now, what would you say are three lessons you would want a lot of our young aspiring entrepreneurs to take back?
Okay. I mean, I think as Elon Musk says, go big or go home. If you
Hmm.
can't impact the world in a positive way,
Hmm.
I think think big. So that's the
Hmm.
first thing I'd probably say.
Hmm.
Second, I think uh, always, improvement and learning is key to success. A
Hmm.
mistake is a mistake when made twice, otherwise
Hmm.
it's a learning. So
Hmm.
keep making mistakes and keep learning, right?
Hmm.
Because there's no end goal to learning.
Yeah.
And third, I think keep the hustle on, even though the end goal may be impossible to achieve.
Yeah.
Keep the hustle on because you never
Very
know.
interesting. Very interesting. And on that note, Bhuman, and your three wonderful lessons, think big. Second, you said was, learning is a path to success. Keep failing, but keep learning. And the third one you said was keep the hustle on. Thank you so much for speaking to me despite your busy schedule. Thank you for talking to me about your journey. Thank you for talking to me about so many different aspects of Wicked Good and the amazing amount of healthy initiatives you are taking to unjunk India through your brand Wicked Good. Thank you for
Thank you
speaking
so
to me
much.
and good luck.
Likewise. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.